Groundwork for an Ecological Dictionary of Music Education Keywords. This paper is to be presented at the 14th International Symposium on the Philosophy of Music Education at Jacobs School of Music, Bloomington, Indiana, July 6, 2025. In this paper, I offer a logic for obtaining and defining words for an ecological dictionary of music scholarship, defined as scholarship around music teaching in public and private schools by music specialists and also other educational professionals who utilize music in their interdisciplinary instruction at pre-K to university levels and outside of institutions such as in community groups and homeschools. The intended recipients of music scholarship are music students, teachers, and parents. The present dictionary is in the spirit of the Development Dictionary, a guide to knowledge is power, a project that brought together various scholars to define and critique important words used in development scholarship. Because I intend to offer definitions that are practical or commonly understood by music students, teachers, and parents for music scholars, both deriving definitions from scholarly discourse and remaining intimate with common understandings is essential to the logic of this dictionary. The current dictionary is not intended to be comprehensive or to terminate conversation. Rather, this dictionary can be a groundwork for future revision. The possibilities for creating something like a dictionary, taxonomy, or keywords as philosophical research has been explored elsewhere. To some extent, all philosophy involves the clarification of terminology, and keywords have been understood as a method that stimulates historical considerations of legitimacy, what may be considered a material force. The way we use language produces a social praxis. Rogalski suggests one reason music students, teachers, and parents disregard research is because scholarly language is too technical to be applied in real life on the job. The same seems true for the use of ecological words in music scholarship. According to the United Nations Security Council, climate change and the ecological crises are in general are perhaps the greatest existential threats to human and non-human life in the 21st century. Ecological scholarship recognizes a web of relationships, human to human, human to non-human animal, and non-human to non-human, and considers non-biological qualities such as places, geological histories, climates, minerals, and waterways. This dictionary exemplifies a critical refusal to partake in the centuries-long march of universities towards narrower disconnection, specialization, and the teaching of material and human obsolescence. Why ought we have an ecological dictionary of music education keywords, a disputatio? Question 1. If the word ecology is to be used in various ways in published scholarship, is a dictionary wanted? I begin with the assumption the common understanding of ecology and other related words is often correct and useful, but scholars frequently malleate words with a hammer of theory disconnected from the communities that scholarship purportedly serve. These words are often beaten into whatever scholars want those words to mean. To exemplify, if you ask any school child, teacher, or parent what nature means, you're likely to receive a naive and accurate description of trees and birds and soil and trees, bears and beloved parks, freedom and play. Places without excessive human intervention or fabrication. As a philosopher, the same question, and you might be offered an etymology, such as being, essence, quality, of powers of growth. Consequential for philosophers, but disconnected from common understanding of the word. Ask an active researcher the same, and they might take a narrower definition from recent studies on, say, the nature of crescendos in the Sousa trio sections, the nature of women conductors in U.S. orchestras, or the nature of code switching in pre-service teacher training programs. For the researcher, the word nature has become something akin to the word essence or experience, perhaps, but not necessarily aligned with the philosopher. Both the philosopher's etymology and the researcher's understandings are endorsed uses of the word nature, though each has malleated nature from its common definition, not over time. The common definition is what is commonly held by music students, teachers, and parents. The music student, teacher, or parent, when hearing the philosopher researcher say they are studying nature, must respond with a moment of misperception. Oh, you mean that nature? We might write the essence of crescendos in Sousa trio sections to avoid the temporary moment of misperception. Often unclear words are operationalized rather than clearer words being chosen. But why does this matter? Many might argue that all complex words have multiple evolving meanings, which are setting, place, and culture dependent. Clarity comes in individual papers, theses, and monographs that use that as the word, in this case nature, is operationalized. As a philosopher who spends quite a bit of time in my own writing operationalizing words like nature, I am sympathetic to this argument, but problems arise. The first problem is practical. In writing, scholars are writing for some specific publishing entity, such as the Bulletin of the Council of Research for Music Education or Philosophy of Music Education Review. Each of these entities have page numbers and word count expectations. Some of these expectations are firm limits, and others are more loosely defined. On a practical level, not every term is or can be operationalized in every paper. We have a scholarly system where the words reviewers and editors press writers to clarify in depth are those words subjectively deemed most important to clarify, or at least most unclear to the reviewer. Some words are treated with operationalization and others remain vague. Words like nature, our first example, are often used in malleable ways. Question 2. Does this paper only refer to ecology-related terms used in scholarship? Simply yes, because words seem to emerge in human communities through a complicated and not entirely identifiable process, and because this process is, for the most part, outside of academic writing, scholarship can understand, clarify, and use words that are understood by the people. Using these words beyond the academy and academic publishing entities, or otherwise, scholarly writing can descend into self-referential, occult, insider knowledge that is neither understood nor used by music students, teachers, and parents. This current dictionary may highlight scholarship that 1. Makes common and clear reference to ecology-related words, that which 2. Is identified as uncommon but potentially useful, and that which 3. Uses words that are uncommon among music students, teachers, and parents, and too occult to be useful beyond the academic writing. These uncommon occult uses may malleate existing ecological words into new non- or anti-ecological meanings. As Virgil said of Nimrod as he entered the central pit of hell, "Waste no words on him, it would be foolish. To him all speech is meaningless, as his own, which no one understands, is simply gibberish." Question 3. How then will a determination be made if a word is being used in scholarship as common clear, uncommon useful, or uncommon occult? What makes for a suitable definition? Suitable definitions accomplish two things. They identify what a word means, and alternatively, they distinguish a word from other related words. For instance, a suitable definition of music would be of use to the extent that it tells a reader what music is, while distinguishing music and relating it to other nearby words such as art, drumming, choir, dance, theater, and poetry. Does musical equal art, or choir, or poetry? If so, in what ways? In what ways is music different from these other words? Is music part of theater, or theater part of music? Does music use poetry, or poetry music? Is their relationship enduring or changing? No definition is likely to be wholly usable or entirely useless. as the needs of music students, teachers, and parents change depending on bioregion, place, time, learning styles, and other lived essentials. Clarity for this dictionary will begin with the word ecology, which has a common way it is understood by children, teachers, and parents, and alternatively, various complex ways it is operationalized by scholars. Other words are derived in relationship to ecology. Generally, ecology relates to words like nature, ecosystem, and environment. If those words hold together in the ways they are used in a particular work of scholarship, a method of verisimilitude, then the definition is common and clear. Verisimilitude is used in this case to draw from the Latin veris, meaning true, and similis, meaning of the same kind. To restate in a different way, ecology has verisimilitude with words like nature, ecosystem, and environment, when those words can be seen as of the same kind. If, in a given work of scholarship, ecology is being used in a way that is of a different kind to nature, ecosystem, or environment, then a less common, uncommon definition is being used. If a scholar were to write, the ecosystem was influenced by the rainfall and wind, ecosystem has verisimilitude with common understandings of ecology, nature, and environment. This sort of common understanding is not a definition of ecology. Rather, this common understanding permits a bar through which definitions that emerge in scholarly writing can be analyzed. Question 5. Now that we have identified a word use as common or uncommon, how do we distinguish between those word uses that are common but potentially useful from those uncommon and occult to music students, teachers, and parents? Common word uses can be approached as a binary. We subjectively ask ourselves how music students, teachers, and parents understand the word. This offers the scholar a simple yes-no. Will scholars disagree on some categorizations? It is possible, but unlikely for well-known collectively understood words. If a scholar holds an uncommon use of a word, often they will understand their definition as uncommon. The uncommon nature of their definition may even be understood as better than common uses of the word. These scholars ought to still categorize word uses as common, even if they quibble over the word's clarity when used in the common fashion. Question 6. Why are common and clear understood as connected? The word common here refers to how the word is commonly used. An uncommon word, then, is one that is used in a way that is not commonly used. When we say a word is clear, we ask, clear to whom? I utilize this example of nature in question 1 because that word, relevant to current dictionary, has a most common understanding related to ecology, but also a less common secondary definition, certainly secondary in everyday use of nature outside of academic writing, as a substance, experience, principle, or essence, which is understandable by music students, teachers, and parents, with some operaalization by the scholar. Most common use of a word is the clearest. Some secondary definitions require only a word or two to clarify. Some uses in scholarship, however, are not so easily grasped, and some even have come to refer to nearly the opposite definition of common understandings. If, for instance, a researcher studies the ecosystem of a classroom, what might music students, teachers, and parents expect? An analysis of the houseplants in the teachers placed in the corner? The birdsongs floating in from an open window? An academic study of Messiaen's birdsongs? What feelings do students, teachers, and parents experience when they realize the researcher did not mean anything related to nature, ecology, or environment, but rather operationalized ecology to basically mean social relationships of the teachers and students, an idea for which something like the word social is clear? Their use of ecosystem as social system, human community, or humans constructed space creates dissonance for music students, teachers, and parents. Redefining common words in narrow, tenacious, and uncommon ways can, as such, create occult definitions that have use in scholarly settings. This scholarship is written for doctoral students obliged to analyze it in seminars, Students who may, through dynamic teaching, internalize the understanding that universities, professors, and other scholars are meant to define words for the ignorant masses to consume. A hierarchy is generated that is anti-ecological. It is the exclusion of ecological interdependence. Question 7. What is meant by ecological interdependence? And how does interdependence relate to the project of generating an ecological dictionary of keywords? Ecological interdependence appears two related words in scholarship. Since ecology relates to nature, ecosystem, environment, interdependence also will to some extent. But interdependence is, unlike those words, not a commonly used word by music students, teachers, or parents. Interdependence seems to be an uncommon useful word in conversation scholarship. Indigenous writing has been important and has attracted increasingly attention to understand the complexity and related nature of people and landscape. In this writing, various peoples and places are understood as interdependent, defined as deeply entwined and radically distinct. In music education scholarship, interdependence leads us to reflect mutuality, community, and small-scale human relationships. At a common level, music students, teachers, and parents can be expected to hold a common understanding of the word dependence, with dependence referring to people, animal, plants, places, and things that need something or someone else to subsist and or thrive. Dependence is understood as the opposite of independence and implies a lack of freedom, with independence being the freedom from dependency. While dependence is often coded negatively, independence is coded positively in the U.S., where Independence Day is a national holiday and the self-made man is a tenacious national myth. The researcher-generated word interdependence, however, without having the baggage dependence has, offers people a means to recognize the ways in which dependence is a positive force in human survival and flourishing. Interdependence sidesteps the negative connotations of dependence while gently resisting the dominance of independence keyword, especially in relation to the domination of humans over other humans, over non-human animals and plants, over clean air, water, soil, and climate, the web of life, aka ecology. The word interdependence incorporates the commonly known prefix inter, referring to dependence within. To exemplify the introduction of large predators, gray wolves, to U.S.'s Yellowstone National Park in 1995, then extinct for many decades, resulted in the improvement of the ecosystem in more ways that were surprising to scientists, including the increase in grizzly bear populations, more wild berries and flower diversity, returning songbirds, bigger trees, cleaner water, and less erosion along the riverbanks. Ecosystems can be cultivated in such a way that arrive at unexpected positive outcomes because of oft unknown interdependent relationships. Defining words in this ecological dictionary necessitates a relationship of ecology, nature, ecosystem, and environment to one another, their verisimilitude, as well as utilizing these words in common ways that recognize the interdependence of life forms and places. Question 8. How does using commonly understood words in uncommon ways lessen the strength of those words? There seem to be two ways using commonly understood words in uncommon ways lessens their strength. First, music students, teachers, and parents are often unfamiliar with the ways words are malleated in scholarship, may not understand what scholarly writing is referring to, which makes the work itself more technocratic and hierarchical. There are, frankly speaking, more music students, teachers, and parents than music scholars, and all ought to understand knowledges that affect them. Second, when these important words are approached, the reader is forced to first analyze whether the scholar means ecology, as commonly understood, or something else entirely. The same is true for nature, ecosystem, or environment. Music students, teachers, and parents come to believe scholarly writing has a tenacious grasp on the reality of definitions from the common perspective, and that it is misleading, and because of being misleading, is inaccurate. Scholarship is something done by people in academia who malleate words for their own purposes, maybe to get tenure, and as writing that has no use or meaning for people who understand what words commonly indicate and use words in common human situations. Question 9. Can we return to the question of how to distinguish between uncommon but potentially useful and uncommon and occult? In the example of ecosystem of a classroom, question 6, a commonly understood word was used in a way that did not point towards ecology, nature, environment. The researcher's focus was not on interdependence with non-human life forms, plants, or bioregions, or considering these beings, places, or things in the abstract. In this case, ecosystem became occult in the way the word was malleated by the scholar into an uncommon word. In contrast, interdependence, an uncommon word, emerged to help clarify the ways dependence, a commonly known but negatively coded word, is potentially useful. Question 10. Do all words fit into the categories common clear, common useful, uncommon occult? It may be beneficial to explore possibilities for words that fall beyond the model. Can a word be both common and uncommon? However unlikely on the face of it, understandings of words generally held can vary, particularly due to human cultural differences. While this paper limits itself to English language words used in scholarship, at the level of common, English-speaking people living in, for example, the US, Jamaica, Ireland, and New Zealand approach the same language in dissimilar ways, which can challenge understandings considered common or the verisimilitude of related words. Additionally, many people speak English as a secondary language, and the structure and terminology of their primary language can influence both common understandings and verisimilitude with other words. It might be admitted that this dictionary will have use primarily for scholars in the U.S. I am drawing on scholarship published in the U.S., Canada, Europe, and Australia. This challenge does not, however, eliminate the use of the dictionary in general outside of the U.S. English language readers in other locations are likely familiar with scholarship that publishes in these journals and by these book publishers. English as a secondary language readers are also aware of the definitions used in research, but may not have a common understanding for these words, even if they know some of the words in everyday speech. Quantity of use affects quality of understanding. There are potential limitations to common understandings, but one must not consider them automatically so. As people in the U.S. understand ecology in relation to nature, ecosystems, and environment, does not mechanically mean English-speaking people in Nigeria or Singapore do not. Rather, in cases where differences emerge, instead of leaving culture at the level of theory, specific patches can be created to modify the dictionary to help it function in different locations. These culture-specific definitions help the dictionary function as intended. In addition to culture, common understandings of words change over generations. This dictionary, when completed, can become an ongoing project through questions such as, does this research still use the word in this way? Are there new emerging understandings being developed? Has a common meaning changed over time, or a word gone into disuse? On the small scale, local cultures are often unified in word understandings. Useful and occult are opposites in their definition. To use a word is to first understand the word's meaning. If that understanding is definitionally incorrect, by not aligning with the dictionary definition or the way that the word is used in published research, then the onus is on dictionary writers and researchers to update definitions to reflect current understandings. Merriam-Webster updated the word truthiness from its 19th century understanding as a synonym for truthfulness to its current understanding related to seeming truthful based on a wish for it being true. The same argument for culture-specific patches to the dictionary can be made for updating the meaning of ecology-related definitions over time. Question 11. Can deriving definitions from scholarly writing and then later checking those definitions against commonly understood meanings privilege scholarly writing? Previously, I had used a grounded theory approach through open-ended questionnaire responses to derive a definition of confidence in relation to learning music improvisation. Themes that arose were listening, criticism-free environment, sequential experience, passion for a style, and openness for learning. But there were characteristic limitations to the research design. Qualitative survey research, and also all research for that matter, has inherent strengths and weaknesses. And this approach's limits, including researcher bias, the types of people who select to compete open-ended surveys, response rates, and approaches to coding data. This approach developed results that were interesting to me but imperfect. In contrast to that approach, this ecological dictionary can be seen as using an alternative but also limited method for deriving definitions. The differing limitations reflect philosophical methodologies, which authorize and make explicit the logical argument made for each common understanding. Limits to this method include limits to logical capacity. As Nietzsche said, that philosophy has become a kind of involuntary and unconscious memoir. A degree of subjectivity, which I make explicit in my philosophical work. Methodologically, I am limiting defining material to academic memoirs and peer-reviewed publications. The strength of using such sources for the construction of each definition is the research process itself, which requires precision on an ideological level. Reviewers understand themselves to be gatekeepers to word use and idea use more generally. This method can be understood as beginning with more rigorous defining documents, while not privileging any specific research methodology, quantitative, qualitative, historiography, philosophy, autoethnography, etc., and then categorizing those definitions with a subjective, logical assessment of common word use, which I am able to do as a member of a specific community. Definitions are then to be modeled using patches by people who belong to other word use communities. Question 12. Would other approaches be potentially better? Better can be a complicated word that can mean more accurate, more ethical, or more efficient. In the open-ended survey model offered in question 11, definition understandings may better represent the common in accurately representing what survey respondents stated. In addition to the design limitations already described to open-ended questionnaires, accuracy can be limited to the prompts that are used by the researcher. The more information the researcher offers in an item, the more accurate the response may be in relation to the word being defined, but less accuracy in relation to differences that might emerge in the respondent's mind. Better can also relate to ethical and moral systems, which are various and can be personal, such as those derived from religions or personal philosophies, or institutional laws, community codes of conduct, or school behavioral modification systems. Many of these can be identified as utilitarian, and others as deontological or virtue ethics, or as authoritarian, mysterious, and often unstated. Another way to understand better is as efficient. In this understanding, the present model thrives. It might be argued that, for this project, the most efficient method is best, even where subjectivity might limit the work, but also permitting future revision and improvement over a period of years. The words. Each of the words in the following dictionary will emerge from ecological scholarship and music education. Each definition is labeled 1, common clear, to indicate the usage aligns with common understandings of the word. 2, uncommon useful, to indicate the word is not commonly understood, but the usage is potentially useful. Or 3, uncommon occult, to indicate the word is commonly understood differently, and other words might be used in the scholarship. The goal of this dictionary is to offer scholars more utility as they utilize words that are frequently used in ecological scholarship. Words were generated by the author as well as conversation with other scholars such as Vincent Bates and Pepe Barcelos. Conversations with other experts gain words for the dictionary and identify publications where these words are operationalized.